Okay?
Yes.
Okay. Today's verse, Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 1, Chapter 19, Verse 20. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
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 Okay. So read the translation. I read the Sanskrit, then the translation.
Yes.
Nava idam rajarshivarya chitram bhavatsu krishnam samanubratishu yedyasanam raja kirita jushtam sadyo jahur bhagavat parshvakamaha. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada.
Jai Srila Prabhupada.
The sages said, O chief of all the saintly kings of the Pandu dynasty who are strictly in the line of Lord Sri Krishna, it is not at all astonishing that you give up your throne, which is decorated with the helmets of many kings, to achieve eternal association with the personality of Godhead. I think it's good to repeat it because when I'm listening, I miss a part or two. So we do this like we always do. The sages said, O chief of all the saintly kings of the Pandu dynasty,
O chief of all the saintly kings of the Pandu dynasty,
who are strictly in the line of Lord Sri Krishna, it is not at all astonishing that you give up your throne, which is decorated with the helmets of many kings, to achieve eternal association with the personality of Godhead. Purport. Foolish politicians who hold political administrative posts think that the temporary posts they occupy are the highest material gain of life, and therefore they stick to those posts even up to the last moment of life, without knowing that achievement of liberation as one of the associates of the Lord in His eternal abode is the highest gain of life. I'm sorry, my tongue stopped. The human life is meant for achieving this end. The Lord has assured us in the Bhagavad Gita many times that going back to Godhead, His eternal abode, is the highest achievement. Prahlad Maharaj, while praying to Lord Nrsimha, said, "O my Lord, I'm very much afraid of the materialistic way of life. And I'm not the least afraid of your present ghastly, ferocious feature as Nrsimha did. This materialistic way of life is something like a grinding stone, and we are being crushed by it. We have fallen into this horrible whirlpool of the tossing waves of life. And thus, my Lord, I pray at your lotus feet to call me back to your eternal abode as one of your servitors. This is the summit liberation of this materialistic way of life. I have very bitter experience of the materialistic way of life. In whichever species of life I have taken birth, compelled by the force of my own activities, I have very painfully experienced two things, namely, separation from my beloved and meeting with what is not wanted. And to counteract them, the remedies which I undertook were more dangerous than the disease itself. So I drift from one point to another, birth after birth, and I pray to you, therefore, to give me a shelter at your lotus feet." The Pandava kings, who are more than many saints of the world, knew the bitter results of the materialistic way of life. They were never captivated by the glare of the imperial throne they occupied, and they sought always the opportunity of being called by the Lord to associate with Him eternally. Maharaj Parikshit was the worthy grandson of Maharaj Yudhisthira. Maharaj Yudhisthira gave up the imperial throne to his grandson, and similarly, Maharaj Parikshit, the grandson of Maharaj Yudhisthira, gave up the imperial throne to his son Janamejaya. That is the way of all the kings in the dynasty, because they are all strictly in the line of Lord Krishna. Thus, the devotees of the Lord are never enchanted by the glare of materialistic life, and they live impartially, unattached to the objects of the false, illusory, materialistic way of life. Om Jnana Timirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshur Unmilitam Nena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha was born in the darkness of ignorance. My spiritual master opened my eyes with the torchlight of knowledge, and I offer my respectful obeisances unto him. So this is mostly about how King Parikshit was able to give up the throne. He was give up all his attachment, his identity as a king, as the emperor of the whole world, the emperor of the whole planet, and he let that go because he wanted Krishna's association in the spiritual world. He wanted to go back to Godhead. So that's what this whole point is about. And in the purport, the sages are saying that they're not astonishing. It's not astonishing that he's able to do this. Well, that seems sort of straight. That's a way of speaking that is sort of Prabhupada's style, or maybe it's not just Prabhupada's style, but it's not astonishing but it is astonishing for us in the material world. It's not astonishing if one knows what's what. Because then one said, well, yeah, Krishna knows what's what. We're all eternal spirit souls, eternal servitors of Krishna in the spiritual world. It has nothing to do with whatever we have or are in this world. And so those who know are not astonished, but they're very, very pleased when someone is able to do this, give up their throne or the equivalent of the throne in order to go back to Godhead and be who they really are. And so this is, it's kind of stressed here how to give up your throne, which is decorated with the helmets of many kings. So he gave up a lot, what we would call a lot. Because emperor of the whole world, that was his identity. Think of it, he let go of your identity. And then in a few verses back he said, just accept me as a surrendered soul. That means don't accept me as the emperor of the world. You all came to see the emperor of the world, and going back to Godhead, but just accept me as a surrendered soul. And he gave that up. Didn't have any of the royal dress, he just had some simple cloth, and was sitting on the bank of the Ganges, gave up the kingdom to his son, whether or not, didn't worry about whether his son's qualified or what, he did his best raising him, and then he let go. And it's a hard thing for us to understand. But we have this example. So we all eventually have to let go. We will either let go before we die, or we will let go when we die. And if we let go when we die, if we forget to be willing to let go in that minute, we might be clinging to it and have to come back. So death is a frightening thing, and death is where you feel everything being taken away from you. And I can only speculate because I can't remember millions and millions of deaths I've had. So I kind of have to speculate a little bit what it would feel like, but you're losing everything. You leave behind everything that you identified with, your body, your possessions, your family, all your accomplishments, everything, except devotional service. And that's why when we, in the path of devotional service, there are stages of advancement. In the higher stages, one starts to know what one's eternal position is in the spiritual world. So it's like Prabhupada said, it's like, well, from one life to the next, and from material life to spiritual life. It's like the caterpillar going from one leaf to the next, where they enter and they pick up and they go to the next one. So when we advance in spiritual life and begin to know, if we make really good advancement, real serious about it, we can begin to know or begin to have a feeling of or something that we have an eternal position in the spiritual world, that we're just going to, be there, like the interim. And otherwise, if we don't have any of that, it's like the worm that falls off the tree. You don't know where you're going to end up or what's going to happen. So that's why we practice for a lifetime. We practice and make this advancement so that we can, the three higher stages of the last three stages of spiritual advancement are when one starts to actually know one's spiritual constitutional position and be there a little bit, or a lot, being there. And actually we're still there, but we're not in consciousness. We're down here, like in a dream, Prabhupada said. It's not a dream, but it's somewhat like in a dream. It's not like you fell asleep in the spiritual world, this is your dream. But it was a choice. Our experience of dreaming in this world is that dreams just happen. So it's not like that, it's a choice. But it's somewhat functioning like a dream in that we're really there, but we're totally convinced we're here. which is something only Krishna can pull off to make this real in the way that it's real. But I mean, to create this alternate reality for us that we're completely in, even though we're there, which is, you know, it's sort of like Achintya Veda Veda Tattva. There's lots of Achintya Veda Veda Tattva things going on in Krishna consciousness, because we can't conceive what Krishna can conceive. So he's talking here about foolish politicians who hold political administrative posts. They think that temporary posts they occupy are the highest material gain of life, and they stick to these posts even up to the last moment of life. So this we see, and really we see it in the movement too. We see it in our material government, and we see it in the movement, that because we're still learning how to be devotees, and we're still learning, we haven't made a lot of progress yet in learning Varnashram. The Varnas and the Ashrams are all stages. The ashrams are stages of life. And because we're just starting this movement, we're just starting to be devotees, and we don't know if there's a succession or not. You know, we're having these succession meetings, but we don't know what's going to happen yet. And so we're hanging on to posts because we don't know how to do it otherwise. But really, so many times Prabhupada said, at age 50, quit your family responsibilities and go to the holy places or go to the forest. And then we say, well, this is a holy place. Yeah, but sometimes we brought our family responsibilities and our work and everything. It's all mixed together. So we do the best we can according to the situation we have. So I was going to mention about how this sort of relates. This debate going on whether there can be female Diksha gurus or Vaishnava Diksha gurus or something, what they call VDGs or something. They have to have an acronym for everything. So they're arguing online. So somebody's putting all these quotes and somebody's putting all these other quotes. And they're actually, is that the one? I was going to talk about that too. But it's also, I know why it connects. Because the pro-female Diksha guru people are saying, well, if you're going to say that according to Varnashram a woman can't be guru, then you follow Varnashram strictly. So then that's when they list all the quotes about how so many times, I mean it was a column of quotes, all the times Prabhupada said, leave your family life at 50. Not just should, but you must. Leave family life at age 50. And he said it so many times. And then, you know, a couple of times, one time he said, well, if you have a good wife, you don't have to take sannyas. And another time he said, well, the wife can accompany as an assistant. In that context, it seemed to be about, okay, sex life up to age 50, and then wife can be an assistant. Which doesn't make sense to me, because then you got babies, but anyways, I guess raising little children is part of sex life, so in that sense. But so many times Prabhupada said that. And
Prabhupada said have sex life?
No, sorry. Thank you. So many times Prabhupada said, leave your wife at home and children at age 50 and go to the forest.
The babies are now 25 years old.
Yeah, the sons should be grown up. Not that you have to have sex life until age 50, and then you go and the poor old lady's got a baby, you know. You're supposed to take care of her when she's 70, if she can raise him right by herself. Not like that, but anyway, he also says a woman has to be protected by her grown sons at this time. Well, all women don't have grown sons. Sometimes they had only daughters, sometimes they had a son who died, or sometimes they just didn't have children for some medical reason, or some other reason, and they just don't have grown sons. So all these things are the instructions, the recommendations, and the guidelines. There are sometimes contradictory guidelines given by the same spiritual master, and then people like divide up and they pick their favorite quote and they have an argument. But actually, everybody should respect and keep all the quotes, all the instructions. You follow what you can that's before you as the one you're able to follow first, the best, and you follow that one, and then see what else you can follow. That's what I figured out. Because, for example, the famous situation where there's two sannyasis, both of them sitting side by side in front of Prabhupada. According to this description I read, Prabhupada turns to one and says, well, you're a sannyas now. don't travel anymore. And just stay in one place because you're renounced. And then turns to the other and says, you're renounced now, so you have to travel. And so supposing there's like 10 sannyasis listening, wanting, eagerly wanting to know directions for me, And so then they divide up and argue about this. No, all the instructions are there. You just do what you can. Supposing somebody was traveling for business. Okay, so he takes sannyasa. Prabhupada says, don't have to travel anymore. Stay in one place, worship the deities, preach regularly like that. And be simple and trust Krishna. So then he says to the other one, okay, leave your family and go travel and preach it, trust Krishna. The principle underlying is the same. So the more we take all of Prabhupada's instructions, even the contradictory ones, and honor all of them, nobody can follow all of them anyway. So what you do, the Lord is in the heart, Super Soul's in the heart, shining the lamp of knowledge in the darkness born of ignorance. And this happens. We get understanding of the things we hear, the instructions we hear and read. We get understanding with time if we accept them. And at first it might be kind of abstract, or it might be kind of like a stark thing, but that you can't do, or something like that, too. It's so extreme and stark. But after a while, the Super Soul shines a light in the heart, and then you understand how you can do it, or how you can apply the principle of it, or something. And also there's the idea, the instruction, if you can't do what the spiritual master says, then meditate on his instruction. Okay, that too. You can't do all the instructions, so you meditate on them. And then with the Super Soul in your heart, he shows you what you can do. How can you follow these instructions and understand the principle right? So yes, there's trial and error, and there's a learning curve, but it's not like we can have some kind of policy. In fact, after reading these debates, I'm against any policy of whether or not a woman can be Diksha Guru. Just take all the instructions that I want all my disciples, boys and girls, to become Guru. Can all of your disciples, or Guru, woman has to take care of her husband, and it has to be protected all the time, can't be independent. Take all these apparently contradictory things and cherish them all. All of the instructions. And don't make a policy. What is it? Chinchya Swarup said, education, more education, less legislation. More education, less legislation. So just all these things that people are arguing about, put together all the quotes on both sides, put them in one place, and teach everybody all the quotes. Teach the whole thing. And then it will, if everybody is sincere following this, the Lord in the heart makes it clear what to do. And each person might have a different application. And they might make mistakes, but then the Lord is still in the heart. He's still guiding, so you correct the mistakes. And the other devotees around you may help you. So this is part of having faith in Krishna too, and faith in Guru. So anyway, so this was about leaving home. So the instructions are there. Leave home at age 50. And maybe you can't. Well, in what way can you? So if you stay home, but maybe more renounced. Maybe replace one of the materialistic things you used to do in your life with more and more spiritual things. And so in that way, we go toward following Prabhupada's instructions with the guidance of Super Soul in the heart. And so this is, let's see, this is how we can learn from this. Sort of like there isn't that much of a place to go if you're married and have a family, wife here in the movement, and you're going to renounce and go to join the Hare Krishnas. Well, you're already here, so it really isn't that many different places. Go to a different temple or something, but you can help each other serve Krishna and simplify your home life. So in that way, you follow this instruction too. But it's not a matter of external policies or like laws. Supposing ISKCON said, well, Prabhupada said it 521 times said that one must leave home at age 50. So that's now our policy. So we're going to go around and look at everybody's birth certificate, find out how old they are, and if they're with their wife, we're going to kick them out, make them go do something else. Okay, no, we're not. Can't have rules like that and do it externally. We have to do it from internal growth. And you grow the way you grow, like a tree. You can't grow a different way. You grow as you grow. It has to come from your heart. And let's see. So anyway, here, Prahlad has this realization, even as a 5-year-old child, not 50, but 5. And he is praying to Lord Nrsimhadev, I'm not even afraid of you, you're so scary looking, but I'm not afraid of you. Because he knows who he is. But perhaps, I don't know whether he was praying to him as lion-headed Nrsimhadev, or if he was praying to him all this time as Vishnu. I don't know what his meditation really was. I don't know if it tells or not. But anyway, he said, I'm not the least afraid of your present ghastly, ferocious feature as Nrsimhadev. So he was not afraid, because he knew who he was anyways. And he was not afraid of that. He was afraid of material life. He had that realization that material life is far more terrifying than the Supreme Personality of Godhead appearing in a scary form. So the real material life is far more terrifying. Something like a grinding stone. We're being crushed by it. Let's see. We have fallen into this horrible whirlpool of the tossing waves of life. A whirlpool goes down, goes around and around and down. There are these places in the world where they have giant whirlpools in the ocean, or some near the shore or something, maybe, I don't know, between the reefs or something. But somehow there's some kind of, they call it a maelstrom. Am I saying that right? Mm-hmm. Maelstrom?
Maelstrom?
Something like that.
Well.
But anyway, it's a giant, ships can get caught in it and go down. At least small ones can get caught in it and go down, get sucked in it. It's just a giant, and it would be terrifying to see going down, down. Also, if the dam has a leak in it, it will develop a whirlpool. The leak gets bigger and bigger, a big dam. It'll develop, before it breaks, it gets bigger and bigger, making a tunnel, and the water is sucked down in a whirl. And if somebody's in a canoe or something, they can get caught in it, and they can go down. And what a terrifying thing is to be, it's all just water going around and around, and you're looking down this tube into the water, and you're going down it. And what's down there? Terrifying.
There's also a current. It's not a whirlpool, but I'm trying to remember the name of it. Maybe it's trying to tip my tongue. Anyway, that just, you can't swim out of it.
Oh, that's a riptide.
Riptide.
Oh, riptide, yeah. You can, riptide, you do have some hope. You can swim across.
It depends.
You can go out because it goes out and it comes when you can come around. It's only in certain places.
You have to be a really strong swimmer.
Yeah. So, so we could say, the whirlpool of life. We're thinking whirlpool is something in your sink or something. But no, a whirlpool of life would be terrifying to be in. And that's what we're in, because it's going around and it's going down. And we're going to die. And nobody really wants to die. The dying is terrifying. We don't know where we're going to go next. Don't know what the body's going to feel like. We're going to be out of the body, out of the familiar, into what. And so people who are clinging to the material life and the material identification are living in fear, although they mask it all different ways. But they're living in fear of losing it and losing everything and the whole identity, and terrible. Maybe they think they're going to lose their existence. So, and then there's another image that's from a Buddhist source. So your life is like a rowboat on the shore. You get on the shore of the ocean, you get in the rowboat, and you row out into the great big ocean, and it sinks. That's life. You get in a rowboat, row out into the great big ocean. I guess you spring leaks and you use different kinds of buckets, and the buckets break, and you're trying to get them, it's deeper and deeper, and finally you sink. And that's your life. So that's what we do. And materialistic life. So, I pray at your lotus feet to call me back to the eternal abode as one of your servitors. This is the summit liberation of this materialistic way of life. So he says, I have very bitter experience of the materialistic way of life. Prahlad had a lot of bitter experience because he had a rotten father who was trying to kill him. And he had to undergo all these tortures, but he was protected. But still, it wasn't pleasant for the father to, and he had to keep his meditation really fixed on the Lord. And he was protected, but, and he was thrown under elephants' feet and all kind of off cliffs and given poison, all kind of stuff. And I very painfully experienced two things. So, let's see, in whichever species of life I've taken birth, compelled by the force of my own activities, I have very painfully experienced two things, namely separation from my beloved and meeting with what is not wanted. So, yeah, we are like, what does it say? We're like pieces of seaweed floating in the waves of the ocean, sometimes together, sometimes not. We get all attached. We're looking for Krishna, so we find somebody that we can love in a material way at least and cling. Well, sometimes bubbles, sometimes it's a piece of seaweed or debris or something. But with the bubble example, that usually goes with merging. We don't merge.
Okay.
So, but anyways, you find somebody that you feel you can love, and you cling because you know you got to love somebody, because we're supposed to love Krishna, but we forgot who. But then we're going to lose that person. Very terrible thing. We're going to fall out of love, or they're going to die, or we're going to die, or something. And then separating from my beloved and meeting with what is not wanted. How many things do we get that's not wanted? So many things again and again and again. So many things not wanted, but we get them. So, and then so many kinds of bodies. So many kinds of bodies. Like in the Bhagavad Gita, it tells about the spirit soul gets a different body with different senses, goes through all the different species on the journey. It's in chapter 13. And always the super soul is accompanying, but the soul doesn't know this. So just in ignorance. And birth after birth, drift from one point to another, birth after birth. I pray to you, therefore, to give me a shelter at your lotus feet. So, make sure, okay. And then the Pandavas were a perfect example. It talks about them, how they were very great kings. They had the whole world, and they were such pure devotees that there was blessings on the whole world, making it a really nice place. And in fact, you could get attached and say, well, this is working out really good for everybody. I'm attached to everybody being happy with all these blessings because I'm such a pure devotee. So, but this is only the material world. So when time came to leave, they wanted to be with Krishna. When they understood that Krishna had left, they decided to leave. And they left the kingdom in Parikshit Maharaj's hands. Very, very worthy person. They were, everything was all set nicely. Parikshit left everything to his son Janmejaya, who might not have been so qualified. For one thing, I don't hear a lot of praises sung of him, and for another thing, he's going to kill all the snakes in the world because the snake bird killed his father. And he was ready to kill Indra. This Takshaka was taking shelter of Indra, and he was ready to kill Indra too. Chant mantras, get Indra in the fire too, because he's given shelter to. So, not quite like Parikshit Maharaj's quality. So, nevertheless, it's time to let go. It's time to let go. And the next one is, what did I see? Of course, I don't have it here with me. It's in my notebook, but maybe I can say a quote from Prabhupada. That not to worry about what goes on in this world. It's such a short life. Just try to go back to Godhead, try to love Krishna. The people are going to do what they do, and nonsense is going to go on, and there will be their reactions, and just don't worry about it. Just worry about going back to Godhead. So that's what this is about. And I guess I'll stop here. Any comments or any questions? Yeah.
It's interesting that Prabhupada mentioned the politicians. I guess being a king, that's like a political position. And it seems like, I think it was John Dingell from Michigan just left his body. He served 59 years. He doesn't want to give up the position. You get in those positions of power, and they want to keep it. And so it's amazing to people in the world that a politician with that kind of power or a king would say, yeah, I'm done with it. I'm ready to go. To us, it is very astonishing. But not astonishing to those who are spiritually awake. Yeah. They say, in the verse before, they said, very good.
Mm-hmm. They were very, very pleased, but they knew the quality, the spiritual quality of Krishna Maharaj, so they were not astonished, but they were very, very pleased. They were very happy about it.
Very good.
I wanted to ask, like you were saying that Prabhupada could tell to sannyasi to stay and one like, go away, but had he really said this to at least one sannyasi, like you should stay and...
Where is this story? Is it in the I've heard this story that circulates, maybe part of it circulates because I keep reading it.
So it's like, it's not just example, it's like, it has some base.
There was a real incident, someone described this real incident.
Oh, okay.
I never heard of it.
You never heard of it?
Yeah, because I want to know where is it from, this story. It's just...
Well, but I don't know if that particular thing happened, maybe it did, but I never heard it, but definitely Prabhupada would give different devotees with the same kinds of position, different instructions according to the time, place, and circumstance, according to the individual.
But what to do, like, for example, we can say that, like you're saying, let's just remember all the quotes and maintain neutral position. But like there are many devotees who, for example, telling that no, you have to go. Like they just go to the extreme points, and sometimes they are much more advanced. I mean, they are senior to you. So, and the institution is built by not everyone. It's like gradually only, but some people are like taking place, very high place, and they have very extreme position in some question. So what can we do in this thing? We can't just say, okay, I'm accepting both sides, but in the practical way, how can you deal with this?
For one thing, nothing is going to be absolute, because you can change your mind if it's wrong. Number two, you don't leave your brains at the door when you join a movement. You're allowed to think too. But yeah, you listen to the senior devotees. But if you can't do, then you meditate on it. You don't maintain a neutral position, because then you don't do anything then. So it's not about maintaining a neutral position, but it's about cherishing all the instructions because they came from Prabhupada. Super soul is in your heart, and gradually, as time passes, you keep on studying Prabhupada's books, keep on practicing devotional service. Keep listening to all the devotees, and maybe try to follow something if it feels right. You know, if somebody tells you something, and you know in your heart there's some circumstance that makes it wrong for you, then you say, I don't think I can do like that. You know, respectfully.
So that's Guru Sadhu Shastra.
Yeah, there's Guru Sadhu Shastra, and there's a Lord in your heart, and nothing is going to be just like the movement can't on a lot of issues. The movement really shouldn't try to make a policy, but should give guidance, recommendations, information, education, quote all of Prabhupada's quotes, and ultimately, we're responsible for ourselves. And it just takes time. That's why we have in the Nectar of Instruction, we have the six qualities, help and devotional service. One of them is enthusiasm, and one of them is patience. If you have only one or the other, if you have too much patience, you don't move forward. If you have too much enthusiasm, you'll make mistakes before you know what you're doing. You know, but some balance of and know that it may take years to have deeper and deeper and deeper understanding. You know, just do your best. Try to follow what people tell you, unless it feels wrong because of certain circumstances personal to you. Then it's a growing thing.
Thank you.
That's a good point about patience and enthusiasm.
Yeah.
You have to use them simultaneously too.
Yeah. So
because some people get out on a limb and then they say, I messed up, but I'll be patient now.
I thought of something else for a second and I lost it.
They'll come back.
Maybe not. Anybody else? You could mention you were having...
Well, there was a lot of points I was thinking of. I mean, one of them I was thinking about is that sannyas in this age is not recommended. Prabhupada said he was doing it because there was a need. Prabhupada was in the end was talking about varnashram, but he'd also say things like when he was talking to Professor Tchaikovsky, I think his name is, in Russia, and he said, you already have, there is no classless society. You have your Brahmins, you have your administrators, you have your sutras, you have your Vaishyas, and again, I don't know how that would work. but there's obviously people doing mercantile work within that system.
Somebody has to manage.
So it's a natural thing. So we already have people here, but in our situation, most ISKCON projects, devotees are going from one to the next. Sort of like that example, that one story I was reading back to, I don't know, 10 months ago, when they decided after Krishna had killed, I don't know if it was Putana or one of those demons, and he was still young, the coward men started to come together and think, this forest here is a little bit too dangerous. I forget what forest they were in. So they decided, they packed up everything and they decided to go to Vrindavan. And then some of them, when they're packing up to go, get their bows and arrows and act as Kshatriyas to protect them on their journey. So there's an interchanging. And I mean, I don't really think that personally, I don't see, at this point, I mean, maybe in other parts of the world and so on, there's other reasons, but I don't see the need for stressing sannyas. And we saw the result of overstressing it. It wasn't helpful, and it created a lot of problems. There's certain, and as far as like, it's like whenever there's some issue that comes up where they're very, very intense about it and they're trying to force it upon people, it doesn't settle right. Especially if those, I haven't really been involved in this issue of the females being diksha, but when Prabhupada says being a guru, I've never taken it to mean that he didn't say you should be a diksha guru. There are many ways to be gurus, and are those same people that are advocating this, are they also saying that women shouldn't be called mata because they don't want to be considered a mother? When we know that in the Varnashram society, the guru ma, the mother is a guru, and so there's different types of ways to be guru.
Yeah.
What is it about being the diksha guru that is so important to you, especially when we're trying to now understand the importance of the founder acharya and the role of shiksha gurus? And so why, I'm not saying that not in some circumstances, certain conditions and certain individuals, it may warrant that a woman be the initiating guru, but making a policy, now we have to start picking out which ones and forcing this on, just like it goes with the whole way they decided how they would. Prabhupada did say they should be the ones to initiate in the beginning, but they also left out the part that Prabhupada had also said that all my Indian disciples should initiate, but they left that part out, and most people never knew that.
All my Indian disciples should initiate.
Yes.
I never heard that. Wow.
Yeah. No, hardly anyone ever did.
Wow.
And so he told Swarup Damodar that, and Swarup Damodar was too humble to make an issue out of it at the time. But, and he never said that you should be a Diksha Guru like the way, and be worshipped on the same level as me. Yeah. He never said that this is the way a Diksha Guru should be worshipped within the house of the founder acharya. So, those things are kind of, and then also the way it was overemphasized about everybody should be brahmachari, and brahmachari should only associate with sannyasis. If you associate with grahastas, that's poison. So it just created this sectarianism, this kind of. So I think we should be more relaxed and things as there. We naturally already have a kind of varnashram system. Well, it's here. It's just covered slightly to us. But it's whether we realize it or not, we're all acting in sort of varnas and ashrams, and that's my story.
And you're sticking to it.
I mean, there's some other things I'd like to bring up, but I think I'll just wait for tomorrow. As far as if I have time, because I think tomorrow's also Jagannath Das Babaji's.
Today is Shivaratri. I read this whole class. I was going to read about what Shiva's. Well, I don't know if we should do that in a minute. We got his prayers to.
Well, if you happen to be in the evening, then that if you have the chance, then, because that's the time generally Shiva worship is done, sort of the dusk, I think. I was reading.
So somebody wants to come in here and read it.
Or, or else, now that you brought it up, we can all go home and meditate on. I would suggest if you have a copy of the fourth canto, I think it's 4:3, could be 4:4, but I think it's the prayers
song by Lord Shiva, and it starts. I just read about it. Starts at verse 33. So
yeah,
the reason that came, I read about that because in Atlanta, there, Prabhu is trying to find some. He was asking for quotes that we don't do Shiva lingam worship in the temple. In other words, he's trying to resist the force. But fortunately, we don't have that force here. They were trying to have to resist and find quotes to prove that Prabhupada said don't do Shiva lingam worship in the temple. Because they were fighting that in Atlanta, apparently.
And one Mataji did.
So somebody, one year, I remember years ago, there was a Shiva lingam on the altar one day. So, and he was very upset about that. So anyways, that was going on. And a whole bunch of people came up and, said their quotes and information and stuff. So.
And some temples do it outside.
Outside, if you do it outside, and right, but anyways.
It's like when Lord Shindev has a separate altar. That's...
Lord Shindev, Lord Shiva,
but Shiva is also, that's a separate thing. It should be in separate place. It shouldn't be...
Because we don't worship Shiva, we worship Shiva as a great devotee, not as...
But we have full respect.
Yeah. We don't worship him as, Shiva worship.
Didn't the Mataji actually find a quote from Prabhupada? It said, of course we don't worship Shiva.
Yeah, there's actually a quote, so somebody found one.
If you listen in the memories, I think it's Puri Maharaj, I can't remember which one it is, it's one of Prabhupada's godbrothers, and he's talking about Srila Prabhupada and how proud he is of Srila Prabhupada's work for Bhaktisiddhanta Prabhupada. And something comes up, and one of the people that is sitting there had some kind of a tattoo, and he's looking at him, and he says, "This Shiva Tilak?" And I don't remember exactly how it was explained. No, it's not. He said, because this is not a. If I see Shiva Tilak, I should bathe Vaishnava.
I should bathe.
Yeah, I should bathe. Yeah.
Wow. Because that's worshiping a demigod. Even though Shiva he's classed among the demigods, as far as we only worship him as a great devotee, not because otherwise it's demigod worship. We take the name of Lord Brahma, Lord Shiva as equal to or.
Well, it's like Ganesh, okay? So Ganesh, many of the quote-unquote Hindus worship him for material opulence. And that worship has to be very opulent. But also in Nectar Devotion it says that Ganesh, Vaishnavas, can observe some kind of, reverence for him. I don't know if it says puja specifically, because Lord Nrsimhadev removes all material obstacles for those who are practicing bhakti yoga.
So we don't
and the reason for that is that in the Brahma Samhita describes that Lord Nrsimhadev, Ganesh carries Lord Nrsimhadev on his head. So Ganesh takes care of all the lower, middle, and upper planetary to remove all obstacles. And Lord Nrsimhadev takes care of all of the obstacles in the spiritual world. He's
spiritual.
Yeah, he's like that.
So we aren't really supposed to develop worship. It wasn't given to us. Prabhupada didn't tell us how to worship Shiva or Ganesh. So
oh yeah, no, and devotees started to at one point.
Comes in from elsewhere.
And they were trying to do like that.
Yeah.
The party that was in Japan collecting money, and then Prabhupada explained how they had to worship so much, and he expected, $100,000 a day or whatever, some enormous amount of money.
Yeah.
And anyway, those things are there. I mean, we have a Ganesh there, Gornitai and Nrsimhadev, but it's our own family thing, and then there's a Ganesh that was given to Kalim. So, but now knowing that Ganesh carries Nrsingadev, I feel like it's okay.
Well,
He's at his feet.
we're going to sing it.
I'm not worshipping him, he's just there.
Yeah, okay. Well, then he's
Associate.
a great devotee that you're including or something.
Yeah, yeah.
I know, I was going to say something back by talking about Varnashram, that we're automatically doing Varnashram duties in different ways. When I did my study of Varnashram and compiled that book that I did, then I came to the conclusion it's not about setting up Varnashram, it's not about deciding who's who, it's about knowing what the qualities and duties are of each one. So whatever we end up doing, we should do it according to those qualities and duties. So we should understand, this is my conclusion, we should understand Varnashram the way we understand that we're not these bodies, but we're spirit souls. You understand it and you see how to apply it. So we should understand Varnashram that way, and then we'll understand how to apply it correctly. And not try to have policies, not try to set it up and put people in designated things, but understand the qualities and duties.
Well, just one point, and I was going to maybe talk about it tomorrow, but I got it going now. But there's one thing is that, it's true at the time of death, everything is taken away from you, but the thing is that the subtle body, mind, intelligence, false ego, remains until you're actually liberated. That subtle body is practically eternal. It's been with you since you got here.
Yeah.
And it's been, and so when you're taken out of your body, you're taken out with the subtle body.
Unless you go back to Godhead.
Unless you're going back to Godhead. And that only way that happens is if the subtle body is completely absorbed in.
But the subtle body is what hurts when we lose the gross body and everything.
Yeah, because
the subtle body feels the pain.
But he's still thinking he has it.
Yeah.
That's why if you're not put into another body within a certain period of time, then you become like stuck and you're a ghost, and you don't know that you're dead necessarily.
Yeah.
And you're still trying to enjoy the way you used to. And it's very frustrating life.
Yeah.
So the subtle body also changes, but it doesn't get changed from one to another. It just morphs.
It morphs because of the way the way you've used this body, and then that you the way you've indiscriminately ate. So therefore, you're prepared for that or whatever.
Yeah, the subtle body. Like I may have a subtle body. It may be of a child or maybe of a grown-up, and then I change to another body, and it's the same subtle body, but it's morphing all the time. Whereas the gross body, just get a new one, it's different kind of change, but both of them are changing, because only the soul is eternal and unchanging. Yes, okay, thank you all very much. All glories to Srila Prabhupada, all glories to Srimad Bhagavatam.